we'll get on with it. Bit of a disclaimer, names of people and places have been changed to protect the innocent. Some of the situations have been embellished to make this talk a little bit better and me maybe sound a little bit cool, or an attempt to, or sound less stupid. So who am I? That is definitely me. Either in Lord of the Rings or in Game of Thrones, take your pick. I'm James Thurall. I'm a software developer, have been for 20 some years, currently a dirty contractor and looking to move into more consulting and stuff like that. Primarily work with .NET, but work with Python and Dart and pretty much any other language or framework you can throw at me, I'll pick it up and run with. I used to host a Cynical Developer podcast, did that for about 5 years, and then due to the pressures of COVID, I stopped that, give myself a bit of a mental break, but that will be coming back next year at some point. We've got Tabs and Spaces, which I was a co-host of. That's on a hiatus at the moment, there's a bit of a theme coming here. But we've done that for a couple of years. And then my business is Whitefish Creative Limited. Obviously find me at jamesthurall.co.uk, GitHub. I've not included Twitter on there on any of the socials because I don't really use them anymore. But if you do message me on there, I probably will reply at some point in the next 12 months. So, into the talk, I guess. This all came around one wet and rainy afternoon in Wales, if you can imagine it as such. I was sat working on some client stuff, building out a UI, sort of sketching it out, and this epiphany came to me, this paradox that creativity, coding is creative. A lot of people think that it's not a creative process, but there are lines between art and music that transfer into code. And there was a few things that I do, and we'll get into some of those in a little bit more detail later. But I've been a graphic designer, and I find my way into coding, and mainly because there was more jobs, but get the same sort of kicks and things from that. And it was an unexpected juncture, I guess, between taking swigs of coffee and typing on the keyboard that this came to me, that it's two sides of the same coin. And I think it was spawned by the fact that I'd had several conversations with people around me that had told me that I shouldn't define myself as a developer. And I said, well, that is who I am. I live and breathe it. I work for clients and my business 8 till 4, 9 till 5, and every other waking hour where I'm not being a parent, I tend to be sat on my computer doing something, whether it's coding or gaming or something. You know, it's built into me. They said, no, you're much more than that. You do this and do that and the other. And it sort of sent me on a bit of a spiral of crisis of identity, I guess, of who am I? Because I've always identified myself as a coder. And it made me think about that. Well, and I came to the conclusion, I am a coder, that is who I am, that is my identity. But coding sort of bleeds into every other thing that I touch and that I get into. So, years before I was this fine specimen of a developer that you see stuff before you. As I said, I was very much wrapped up in the world of graphic design. You know, it was all about colours and fonts and layouts, typography, and I used to be able to identify a font in a blurry JPEG at 45 yards. I can't do that anymore. My brother is still a graphic designer. We used to have very geeky competitions of, can you tell what this font is by if I just send you this little cutout picture. But anyway, I digress. And these formative years where I was a graphic designer, I was trying to break into the world of code, as I said, that there was more jobs in coding. At one point I was building 3D models and doing add-ons for games, and I was doing a little bit of coding with that as well. but the market's a lot harder for graphic design and things than it is for coding. You get paid more for writing code, and it sort of diverted me down that route. Now, I sort of touched on that a lot of people see coding and programming as being cold and very logical and stringent about what you can and can't do. But there is I guess similar is not the right word, but there are things that match up. Writing your code is like the brushstrokes when you're painting. The algorithms that you write, they're the compositions in a painting or a photograph. You're taking bits that are there, putting them together, whether that's bits of logic or items in the real world that you're putting together for a photograph. And then your application that you build at the end of the day, that is your masterpiece, that's your digital art in a way. And it's looking at these different junctures that you see that the boundaries start to blur between what's art and what's code. And we would often look at a piece of art and go, yeah, it drives an emotion. It's raw, it's sexy, it's lovable. All of these different words. And I think that everyone in this room, if you've written code, you've looked at someone else's code, you could look at it and go, that's some really good looking code, or even that's some sexy code. Now, I'm not here to kink shame, but if you are saying that, you may need some help. If you do find anyone that can help with that, then do let me know. Now, after one very exhausting session with client code, there's always a way when you're dealing with other people's code. It's troublesome. You get annoyed with it. It doesn't work. I found myself doodling in a notepad, writing things down and drawing pictures. And it was at this point that the seeds for a project, which is this one, that way around, a book called The Definition of Done and Other Tall Tales sort of was born. Because I started writing down, I guess at this point, calling it a poetic verse is probably a little bit of an embellishment. I was just writing down things that rhymed to distract myself. But they developed and they became poems. And this was something that I just started doing and was saving away, and they were just in a folder. I had no intention of doing anything at all with them. It was just, I was doing it for the love of it, the distraction of it. Because I can say I've been a graphic designer, I've always had a passion for design and artwork and things like that. And as part of my sort of business, I do branding and logos and design and things, as well as writing programs and software. And that came around because I've got a friend who's a content writer, and she's nagged me you write a tech book, and by the time you publish it, it's out of date, so why bother? And that's where Definition of Done and Other Tall Tales is a slightly different tech book, because it's poetry, but it's about tech. So it's a little bit weird, very, very niche. And I think that we find it, I'll try that again. We find it's a very rare thing to be able to take different passions that you have and bring them together and have something beautiful come of it. So like some of my other hobbies are or were fish keeping and airsoft. We can't marry them together, that doesn't work. There'll be a lot of glass and a lot of dead fish, I guess. But with coding, they do marry up very well with other hobbies and passions. With airsoft, I was able to offer my skills, and the project didn't happen in the end, but I was going to build devices that they could use for games. And as we're broadcasting on the internet, this is not real items, but they wanted me to make explosive devices and laptops with programs that you'd have to find codes for and deactivate them before they exploded and ended the game and stuff. With fish keeping, I used that to build an online specialist aquarium business, where it was very different from your normal online pet shop is the fact that it had a website with webcams for every item that you went to, and you could look at the fish in the tanks that you were going to buy. I say it's a very unique position to be in, and the fact that I've done design in the past, I'm in a position where I produce code and applications that aren't just functional, but they're usable and they can be pretty as well. And that was something that took me a long time to shift to, because being a graphic designer originally, my applications always looked really nice but didn't work. So why am I here talking to you about this? I've already covered that a little bit before I got to the slide. As I said, I sometimes forget what I'm talking about. And we, like I've said, coding seems to be straightforward, logical exercise, the structured out algorithms and rigid adherence to syntax. You know, it's very cold, very to the point about what it is that you need to do. But I'm here to try and beg to differ on that. And I want to say that it is that coding is actually art, it is design, and it's a creative craft. Now, when you look at a lot of the traditional professions that are out there, there is a dichotomy of it. On one side, you've got people like artists, painters, musicians. They're on this left-hand side here, and it's all about passion, creativity, and the spontaneity of what it is that they're doing. And on the other hand, you've got people like scientists and mathematicians, and it's all about logic and structure and methodical reasoning. And if this was a Venn diagram, we'd have that lovely circle in the middle, which is where I think that developers should live. And I guess you could look at it as that really we are modern day Renaissance persons or people. Now some of you may be sitting there going, well, that's not me. I've seen some of the stuff I've produced and it's ugly. But it's like any skill. When you first sat down to program, you didn't write elegant code. Yes, hello world can't really be ugly, one line of code, but anything past that, it was always a little bit ugly, and we probably still write things that are a little bit ugly now. But as you got more and more into the world of code and you got better at it and you were producing beautiful code, if you like. But it's the same with painting and any other artwork. To start with, you're in Microsoft Paint just scribbling on the on that canvas that's there, and then give it a few years, you're in Photoshop or in Illustrator or some other art programming, and you're producing masterpieces, or maybe you're even not doing it digitally and you're actually taking oils and putting them to canvas and producing artwork that way. So coding is problem solving. At the end of the day, that is what it is. But it's not just those mathematical problems or logical conundrums that we're looking at. We're not looking at just 1 + 1 is 2 and how do I divide 5 by 4 and things like that. We are looking at real world issues. And when we look at creating platforms and in our software, we may create platforms that are connecting people, and that's that platform there to connect people is there for them to share stories. You know, that's a real world problem that you're fixing there, and you're helping maybe users manage their day-to-day tasks. Yes, a to-do list is one of those hello world applications, but again, it's a real world problem that you're tackling. You're not necessarily always tackling problems in the abstract. And to address these problems, you're not, as I say, looking at the abstract problem that's there. You are looking at the underlying issue about what it is that you're trying to solve. And to be able to do that, you have to have some sort of understanding of the human condition. How are people going to react to this? How are people going to use it? What do they want from it? Not just looking at it and thinking, well, I'll put this input and it'll give me that output. But yes, it's functional and it works, but is that really a solution to the problem? And it's through that sort of process that this dual identity comes into play. The world isn't just black and white, it's not binary. There's vast possibilities of what you can do. And just because I think of a way to solve a problem might not be the way that you solve that problem. It could be very, very different, but they could both be very creative and both be solutions. Your code that you're writing, it's functional, but it's not just functional. It tells a story and it mirrors that beauty from life, similar to how art mirrors life. The devs, sorry, that threw me out. It showed me a different slide on the screen. The dev toolkit is very vast. We've got myriad of languages, frameworks, methodologies, everything that we can come up against. There's so much out there. But your most potent tools are your logic and your creativity. Because without creativity, you couldn't look at some of these problems and go, well, how would I fix that? How would I get to that solution? And it's that combo that's our most powerful asset that is there to help bring these ideas to life. Because you might not be just fixing a bug. You might have somebody come to you and go, I want a system that solves X, Y, and Z. It does this for certain people. And that's what we've got to look at. We consider a new app. And when you first sit down to build a new application, you're at that inception stage. And what are you doing during that inception stage? You're thinking. You are awash with creativity because what can we do? How can we solve this? What features can we build? What can we give the customer? That brainstorming session, wild ideas and dreams of what could be, and it may be very different from what the client maybe originally asked you for, because their vision was something, and you use your creativity to open that up and show them a little bit more and show them what was there. Sorry. We get this mashup between all of the creativity and logic. You've got tech entrepreneurs that they're very much business people, a lot of them, and they may be leveraging some experience with code to go out and build a startup. You have software engineers that are, as we said, making digital art, they're making music, and the dual identity is everywhere. And I think that we need to take time to sometimes appreciate the minds that are behind some of this music that we listen to, or some of the applications that we use. We may go, oh, that song's rubbish, or I don't like this application, but there's been some people behind that have had a creative process, and they've not just thrown things together. And it's understanding that a product, it's not just about being proficient in tech. We can learn different languages and we can learn tech. As I said, we can learn arts as well. But we need to merge those together and appreciate that merging of the logic and creativity, and how those two things coming together, they touch our daily lives. Everything around you has had that touch of creativity. Maybe not programming, but some sort of technological advancement. And in every developer is the heart of an artist and the mind of an engineer. In the vast and varied professions, coding stands out as something that's very different. As I mentioned, it's one of those professions that can be taken and applied anywhere. Pretty much every other profession needs technical input in some way, shape or form. A lot of businesses are out there saying, well, we're a finance company, or we're, I don't know, a games workshop company, or something like that. But at the heart of them, really, a lot of these businesses are tech companies. They're building tech to solve their problem. But often there's more tech involved than there is anything else. And the uninitiated, they see programming as being very esoteric. It's mysterious symbols and intricate algorithms. We've got these skills that we've honed over hours and hours of sitting at our computers, but there's much more to that. It has that applicability beyond the screen. The screen. We do scream as well at times. And as I say, it permeates our everyday lives and every other professional. So there's a meticulous process, really, of problem solving. And coders are often presented with very convoluted challenges. It's the magic of coding that helps us here, where we can break down these behemoths of problems into these smaller chunks, and we come up with a very methodical approach to tackling each of those smaller sections that will give us this final product. And often it's an elegant and efficient solution. And as I'm going to iterate and keep saying similar things over and over again, trying to drill this home, is that there is the analytical approach, but it's not just that for the world of programming. Say it's applicable everywhere else. We look at these big problems, we break them down smaller and smaller into these smaller chunks. But you can take that skill and apply it anywhere in your life to other things. We could take producing a music festival. We need to break that down. If you want to go and produce a music festival, that's a big task. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people at locations. Where do you even start? Well, I guess it comes back to, how do you eat an elephant one bite at a time? You break this down, you've got venues, ticketing, vendors, security, staffing, the actual artists, and so much more. But you could take those skills that you've honed from being able to look at some of these big things and go, well, how do I break these problems down? And we dissect those problems. And what we end up with when we then take all those small sections, put them back together, is a final product that people can look at and go, wow, how does all this work? So I don't know. I've not really been to any really big music festivals. I've been to smaller ones. But if you've been to some of those large ones, you're walking around, there's all these people, and everything can seem to just seamlessly flow. Everybody seems to be in the right place at the right time, and it can be unfathomable how that's happened, how those people know where to be. And sometimes some of these events are organised initially by a single person. Now, I talked about these different things like coding and artwork and painting. And I've got coding and poetry in this book, and they couldn't be probably two more distant things to try and marry together, you would think. But I want to pull some pieces of poetry and coding and show you that they're not too dissimilar at all. And just a slight change in poetry, like in coding, can mean a big difference. If we take a phrase, in the silent depth of night, dreams take their ethereal flight, we change one word in that and we make it, in the loud depth of night, dreams take their ethereal flight. Both of them work, but there is a big difference in the imagery that the two produce. Now, when we're writing code, that's true. If we miss a semicolon, we'll get bugs that are probably caught at compile time. But if we use the wrong method, it may compile and be fine. But what we're actually producing is not what we intended to have as an outcome. And writing poetry is very similar to that, in that I might be trying to imbue you with emotions of fear, and being scared, stuff like that. But if I use the wrong term, I don't get that imagery portrayed in the person that's reading what's written. So we've got to be very mindful, give that attention to detail, to ensure that we've got that flawless, or as close to flawless execution as possible. And as we strive to write code that does what it should do, take the Ron Seal approach, should do what it says on the tin. That's what people like artists and poets are trying to do as well. So examples from history. Technology, as I keep saying, is envisaged as a cold and logical and binary. But history was not just influenced by, but it was revolutionised by these people that took multiple disciplines and brought them together. And I'm going to touch on three such individuals, which I'm sure you should have all heard of. If not, write the names down, you can Google them later. And yes, Ada Lovelace. She dreams of a future where computers didn't just compute, but they produced artwork, they produced music. She worked with Charles Babbage on the analytical engine. This is not her, but it is an AI-generated piece of artwork, which I typed in her likeness to, and that's what it gave us. And whether it's like her or not, it's neither here nor there. But she was inspired by a passion for maths as well as music, and her insights into both of these areas, they give that, or they hint at that symbiotic relationship again between art and science, or art and technology, creativity and coding. And she recognised the potential in machines to mimic problems, to mimic patterns and symmetries of music. And really, I guess that she laid the foundation for what we are seeing now, and we have been over the last 12 months, that computers are suddenly able to produce indistinguishable pieces of artwork, pieces of music. Yes, everything at the moment is built off of stuff in the past that other people have built, but so is what we would do ourselves. So she was Mid-Journey before Mid-Journey was a thing. Alan Turing. This is definitely Alan Turing. I hope people get the reference. Does anybody not get the reference? You don't get the reference. Who is he?
Steve Jobs.
Oh, I've gone forward too far. Let's try again. Alan Turing. Let's forget I did that. Where are we going? No, I've gone too far. That's thrown me up. Because what's happening? I give you hints to working. It's showing me a slide here, and I'm going, oh, that's the slide. Well, that's the next slide. Sorry, we'll go back and we'll do Steve Jobs first, and then we'll get to the question.
There was a link though in the apple, isn't there?
No.
What isn't there? If I tell the apple, it's
Yeah. So, not Alan Turing, Steve Jobs. They're very similar people. I think Alan Turing discovered Apple in something like that anyway. But Steve Jobs was a connoisseur of design and aesthetics. He gave a very iconic Stanford commencement speech where he told everybody that during his college course that he actually audited a calligraphy course, and it was the decision to go and do that was instrumental in shaping Apple in the future. Well, the course introduced Steve to, I call him Steve like I know him, Mr. Jobs, to typefaces and proportional spacing and the artistry of fonts. And that didn't just influence Apple, it actually defined Apple's products, Apple's ethos. You know, you go and you buy an Apple product, you expect it to be visually pleasing, to be simple to use. And when the first Mac came out, it was the first operating system that had lots of fonts, unlike the single or very few fonts that were with other competing operating systems. And Steve stands, or stood, however you want to refer to him, as a beacon of the marriage of this aesthetics and engineering. These products that he was producing, they weren't just functional, but they were elegant. And again, bringing together design or art and code and technology. Alan Turing. There we go. Does everybody get the reference now to why that's Alan Turing? Does anybody not?
No.
No.
I still don't get the reference.
Right. So who's this guy? Actually, who does get the reference and would like to win a book? You, yes, go. Yes, he did. So he's Doctor Strange, and it's my mind's gone blank now. Yes, that's him, and he played Alan Turing in the film The Enigma Machine, and I couldn't find a good enough photo of Alan Turing to use, so we went with this, and I will give you a prize at the end. There we go. But anyway, we digress. Alan is seen as one of the founding fathers of modern computing. His interests, they weren't confined to the abstract world of algorithms and programming and mechanics. He actually had a deep fascination with biology, and he studied patterns and designs that were found in nature, which is called morphogenesis. And this is looking at living organisms to see how they develop their shape and their colours and their patterns. So like stripes on a zebra, spots on a leopard, grey balding patches on men. But the biology that underlines his genius was something that helped him with some of the groundbreaking discoveries that he made, again through two seemingly unrelated fields. Now, history is filled with these polymaths, not just Ada and Steve and Alan. There are many, many more. But their stories stand as sort of a flagship to say that there are boundless possibilities of embracing this multidisciplinary approach. We'll take this up to more modern day, something that's happening now, because sometimes it's easy for us to go, oh, well, before all of these computers, yeah, it was easy for these people to come up with all of these fantastical ideas because there was all this space. Well, that space didn't exist because no one had thought about it. They produced this space. And it has been said that there is nothing new under the sun. We are just reinventing things and bringing them together, which is kind of what I'm talking about today. Now, the tech world, it's bustling with these innovators that refuse to be boxed in. We are not just coders, we are not just artists, we are much more than that. And even as, let's say, IT people, for want of a better word, we often wear multiple hats. Many of us have been sat in the office and we've been the developer, we've been the QA, we've been the DBA, we've been IT support, we've been the maintenance guy, we've been the on-site and the off-site support person, and we've probably been sales at one point or another as well. If you're to any length in your career, and you may have been the manager, and you may have been the one person in a IT development team, and I have definitely been stood in front of clients and had to say, yes, I am. Yeah, we have a big team of developers, and that big team of developers is me. But being able to meld our technological prowesses is pretty impressive. And when you probably don't think that you were doing some of these things that I've been talking about, taking art and combining it with tech, but you were taking other things and sticking them together, and they are kind of related. But yeah, you were doing it anyway, and we were redefining what our jobs were and what we could innovate on. Now we'll talk about Dr. Alex Thompson. He is an AI expert. He is very much in the world of neural networks, but he has a panache for the theatrical. And he's very much at home on stage as well as in the computer lab. And if anybody's seen any of his presentations, he doesn't do this. Who wants to just stand here and talk about slides? No. You go to or see one of his talks and you're going to a demonstration of the topic. There'll be characters, there'll be dialogue, there'll be plot twists, it'll be a play. And he's marrying the drama with the data. And through that, he's taking very, very complex problems, making them seem simple, but also making them memorable and unforgettable, which is a massive, massive win. We've got Loom Tech, started by Sarah Lee and Raj Patel. Sarah had an interest in, I always say this wrong, the haute couture. Raj was an MBA grad who had an interest in traditional weaving processes, and between them they started to redefine the fashion tech industry. Now, what they were doing is that they were amalgamating the old art of hand loom weaving, if you like, with technology, and they were or are creating AI-driven looms that they look at what's being produced, and in real time they can predict the errors that are happening and fix them in real time, so they could unstitch and redo stuff, which is pretty impressive. Some of these hand loom machines are very complicated if you've ever seen one. They're also building augmented reality solutions where they could build these patterns and see them without actually doing anything, actually building anything physical. If you've ever seen a knitting pattern, they're often black and white with numbers on. And you cut them out and you can sellotape them together and you can put it on, and it looks very elegant in your dress made from A4 pieces of paper. But they can actually take those patterns and through augmented reality, put a headset on, you could see what it looked like, see how it flowed on a body. And much like all their yesteryear peers, they're a testament to the boundless potentials of taking these different fields and blending them together, integrating varied passions. It opens up and charters new territories, and it's inspiring to look beyond that boundary. And I think that coding has a musicality to it. When you're typing on a keyboard, if you're proficient enough, there can often be a rhyme or a rhythm to your coding. I'm a big fanboy of Rider, and there's a really annoying plugin that if you use it for too long, it eats all your RAM. But it plays your music in the background, but it only plays your music as you type. So if you don't type fast enough, your music stops. And you have the ebb and the flow of your code. You're reading through it, you can see where it goes, and all of a sudden you get to a point and go, this has been marked as for adult audiences. What the fuck does this do? It could be the bass drops as you go, oh, that's what it is that it does. And we've got the crescendo, the end of a piece of music can also be the end and the final piece of a project. You get that same sort of elation. And as someone who dances between some of these more traditional creative pursuits and coding, I often draw more parallels than mere rhyme. Crafting a poem is an intricate ballet of planning, structuring, execution and refining of words, similar to creating some code. You plan what you're going to do, you structure it, you execute on it, you iterate on it. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bore you with one of the poems that I wrote. So yes, this is the right slide. This poem is called Coffee. In the lands of ones and zeros, where programmers reside, there's a secret fuel that keeps them on the coding ride. Oh, a programmer's potion, dark, rich and frothy, nothing brings more clarity than the magic of coffee. From dawn till dusk they slave, making bugs take flight, armed with only keyboards and their coffee mugs held tight. They sip it black or creamy or frothy like the sea, caffeine in their system as constant as gravity. Puzzling through a problem in the coder's wild maze, they summon strength from coffee in its mystifying haze. When their screens blink with errors, causing quite the fright, it's a double shot of espresso that sets everything right. A semicolon gone astray or a bracket out of line can be solved with a coffee and a pinch of time. When the code is knotty and the debugging's tough, it's the coffee cup they turn to when the going gets rough. So here's a toast to programmers with their coffee cups held high in a world of code and caffeine under the silicon sky. No matter the challenges, the bugs or the strife, it's coffee and code that's a programmer's life. Thanks. That was very spontaneous and not prompted at all. So that begins with a seed of inspiration, and that inspiration was coffee, and it's pretty endemic to coding, whether you drink it or not, whether it's tea or energy drinks or some other potion. You all associate, I would imagine, caffeine in some way, shape or form with coding. And that came around from, we're going to embellish a situation again, one of these late night coding sessions where I'm sat there writing some code late night, staring at the screen, and we always turn to the coffee to keep us going, that ubiquitous brew. And it's the metaphor that poem revolves around. I don't think metaphor is the right word because it names it exactly, but we'll go with that word anyway. And in software, the genesis is often that unmet need, that spark of innovation. And the spark of innovation, that unmet need that produced that poem coffee was the drink. So like realizing that a process can be automated, or you've got a new app that could be a game changer, you always need that little bit of a seed to get your creative juices flowing. And before writing your poems or your code, you'll often need a roadmap. And what's the roadmap? It's the story. What story are you trying to portray? What are you trying to do? How do I capture the journey of the user? In this instance, it was how do I capture the journey or the experience of the coder and their drink that helps them through. And again, like with coding, when I sat down and started doodling this one, I outlined some features, some functions, some user stories that I wanted to talk about. I wanted to talk about how coffee was used. I wanted to sort of say what its parameters were, what it did, and then I wanted to talk about how you would use it. And again, there are parallels there with writing code. And it concluded with a tribute to programmers and their coffee. And often, even if it's only internal, when you complete a project, there will be a tribute to the people that have coded it if you work for a decent company. If not, it's normally, right, next project, let's go crack the whip and write more code monkeys. And as I've said, there's a lot of things in writing poetry that are akin to programming, drafting the architecture, deciphering which framework, which language to use. With writing poems, there's often which cadence do I want, which rhyming scheme do I want to use. Do I want a rhyming scheme at all? Because some poems have no rhyming scheme. It's not something I've ever been able to get my head around and able to read, because I like to have that sort of to what I'm reading. And if you do read what's in there, there is some hints to Dr. Seuss's poetry in there that you will often come across. It's been some people have already twigged to that and pulled me up on it, but it's some poetry that I think pretty much everybody of a certain generation and age may have grown up with. And the creating of the poem Coffee and any other piece of artwork mirrors the software development lifecycle. There's requirement gathering and analysis, there's design, there's implementation, testing, and then there's the deployment of it. The deployment is sticking the book on Amazon and going, please buy my book, rather than just using the software. But again, if you build an app and you're trying to promote it yourself, you're still throwing it somewhere and you're going, please buy my app. And it's not just an ode to our brews that is in there. It's a reflection of the creative process that bridges the logic and creativity, and it's bridging that tech world with poetry again, because it is a poem after all. Each line of code that you write can be seen as writing poetry, because each of those lines is crafted with precision, with passion, and with purpose. And it's evident that these two domains are very distinct, but they are distinct boundaries tied together with the same thread, like creation and problem solving and innovation. So next time you sip your coffee, remember that there is a creative beast in every one of us, and every beast needs coffee and pizza. And as I said, this slide is now out of order because you've already had your pizza. So go and get your coffee and your pizza. So we'll move on to our next section. So I hope you enjoyed your pizza and your coffee. You're all refreshed, ready for part two. Seamlessly moving through. We're in an era that is marked by rapid technological advancements, and these boundaries that I've been talking about are becoming increasingly blurred, and we are in a golden age of technology. We're in a golden age of being able to merge these different passions. We may eventually run out of things to combine, but right now you are set at a pivotal point where you could take any different industry and meld it with another one, or meld it with your programming. But nowhere is it currently more evident than in art, music and literature. And these modern tools, they're not just aids, but they're actively reshaping the creative processes that we go through. I don't want to sort of delve into the pros and cons of using AI for creating content and artwork and all that sort of stuff. That's not what I'm going to talk about, but actually using it as an assistive tool to that process. Now, imagine venturing into an art gallery or an art installation, and you're greeted with more than just paint and sculptures. You've got what we talked about earlier with AR and VR, augmented reality and virtual reality. They bring new dimensions to that artwork. You could imagine walking up to a painting, and yes, some of the appeal of a painting is sometimes looking at it and coming to your own conclusion about what it's about, what the artist was trying to convey. Imagine walking up to that and the painting coming to life and actually portraying that and telling you what it was about, what the artist wanted it to do. You know, it told the story of maybe how the artist created it, because you could be looking at something and think, how did they achieve that effect? How did they do this? How did they do that? Or what is the story that they're trying to tell you? They could do that through the augmented reality. Maybe you have VR sculptures. A lot of these sculptures are currently restricted by physical limits about what we can actually do and achieve with the materials that we have. But through virtual reality, they could be so much more. They could be bigger, they could be more elaborate. They could even be interactive, where you could personally change what that sculpture was about, how that sculpture worked, how you interacted with it. You could actually change it in real time. And it's that fusion between, again, technology and creative process. But it's not diminishing the skills and the time that went into creating those pieces. It's giving a fresh canvas. It's giving these artists new abilities, new levels to achieve, new ways to be creative. And now these artists, they have the power of Grayskull, it says here, but I may be aging myself here. But they have the power to create and craft these visual, not just visual things, but these experiences with what they're doing with their masterpieces, rather than just going, yes, it's that, let's hang it on the wall and it's done. AI is now composing music, and that was one of the things we talked about with Ada Lovelace, that she had this thought that could be possible. We could have computers producing music. And when she was looking at the computers that she was working with, that wasn't possible. It was too far-fetched. It just wasn't in the capabilities. But now it's a reality. Every one of us can go and do some AI-assisted creation of music. And if anyone is a musician, you may say that there isn't any unique music anymore. People are just chopping and changing. But some of these AIs can come up with unique rhythms, unique melodies, harmonies, as far as they can be unique. And they could take a twist on the lyrics that were given. You may feed the lyrics into some of these AIs and they go, I know what music would go best with that. And it may be completely different to what the musician originally thought, but still in their wheelhouse. I'm not saying the AI is going to actually go and write and produce the music, as in play the instruments, but it could write the musical notes down and the compositions for artists to go off and produce it. Machines are not replacing humans in these processes, but they're more partners in it, and we should look at it that they are amplifying our visions and the boundaries that we can achieve. For writers, it's a bit of a hot topic at the moment, that AI and tech is doing a lot more for them, and it's impacting them in good ways and bad ways. But it's through technology, through these things and these tools that are now available. It's more than just a word processor. If we take it away from content writing and we look at authors of books and things, that an author would go and they would write a book, or they would write a manuscript for a book, and they would want reactions and feedback. They would have a study group and they'd go away and read this and come back in 2 weeks when you've read it. With some of these new technologies, that delivery to this group can be instantaneous. They can also give feedback instantaneously. They've read a chapter, they can give feedback on it. Which chapters resonated with them, which characters they loved and which characters they hated. You get that feedback loop in there. Same as we want feedback loops in the software that we write. But being able to get that feedback loop done quickly, the author can maybe change and shift where they're going with their book. And at the end of it, they're not going, well, we didn't get all the feedback, this seems good enough, let's put it out there, and it be a failure of a book. They could put it out there and go, we know that our audience likes these things. And it was technology that enabled them to do that, and all of a sudden they've got a bestseller because we brought those two things together. And that's not to say that technology has to dictate the journey of the book the author's writing. It could be just a guide to say, look, people think that this character's a bit of a wet lettuce and they don't like him, get rid of him, change him, or do something with him. But the author could look at it and go, I don't care. So again, it's a tool to help. It's not there to replace the human in the process. And it's another example of these boundless possibilities that are being brought to the forefront by technology. And we need to celebrate these fusions and not be scared of them, because I say it amplifies the potential of what we can do compared to what was previously possible. The lessons that are learned from programming, we've touched on the fact that they transcend the screen. They come into other walks of life. It's not just about fixing bugs. It's not just about writing software. Our coding skills can be a compass in the real world, and we're going to go for story time again. One very cold and chilly morning, I woke up to find that the heating was not working in my house. And I think if I wasn't of a developer mindset, I would have panicked and gone, oh my God, what do I do? Who do I phone? Called somebody out, paid hundreds of pounds to get someone to come out and look at my heating. But because I've got that developer's mindset, you go, oh, this is a problem. Because I've had that mindset, I've read a little bit of the documentation. I wanted to know how this worked when the guy put it in. So I've got some understanding. So let's go and we've got this big problem. Heating's not working. It's a big task. Could be anything. But how do we tackle that problem? Back to the elephant again, one step at a time. We break it down into those small little individual things to go and look at. And yes, this is a very basic thing to probably go and fix. But we started off by going and looking, has it got power? Go and check the front of the boiler. Blue lights on, LCDs on, everything looks good. Right, well it's not that. So what's next? Has the tank got water in it? Has there been an issue and it's boiled over somewhere? Oh look, there's no water in the system. Undo the valve, fill the tank back up, and it works. Or does it? The heater came back on, but the radiators weren't getting hot. Well, why weren't the radiators getting hot? We're breaking that problem down, and in programming, you may go, "There's this problem. Oh well, I found the bit of code that's causing that. I fixed it. There we go. Shipped it. Didn't fully test it. Didn't fix the problem because it wasn't one bug, but there was two bugs in there, and there was two problems with the heating system because there'd been no water in the tank. Air had got pulled into it. There was air in the radiators. So I then had to go around and like dealing with somebody who doesn't like the dry principle, I had to repeat the process of draining all the radiators, the same as you go around and have to fix the bug in every instance of that piece of code. And once that was done, we had heat. So I'd taken that ability, and I may be embellishing this and making it more fantastical than what it is, but taking that ability of breaking down a problem from being a software developer and applying it to something in the real world. And every programmer is aware of that process of iteration. We code, we test, we get feedback, we refine, and we repeat, and we go through that. And I guess that we kind of did that with the heating. It's not working. Has it got power? Yes. Okay. We move on to the next bit. Right, we found a bug. We fix the bug. Does that work? No. Right, let's go back. Go through the steps. Right, found another bug. Fix that. Oh, the heating's not working downstairs. Go through those processing again. Oh, that radiator needs to be bled. Go through it again. Oh, the front room's not getting warm. Oh, what's the problem? Bleed that radiator. And we've got that iterative process. Again, I'm simplifying it with a very mundane problem. And I did this with a poem, or went through a similar process with a poem that didn't make the book, called Digital Dreams. What I originally wrote, you could call it an alpha version. I penned it, I sent it to some people and said, what do you think of this? People came back with some choice words. I tweaked it, I updated it, I changed it. I sent it back out again. They came back and said, have you changed anything? What have you actually done? Could we make this font red? And keep going through that iterative process, and eventually through that feedback loop I got a piece of poetry that worked. It conveyed what I wanted it to. The users were able to read it and they understood what I wanted it to convey. Very much like that iterative process and that feedback loop in programming. You write your software, you get that feedback, and eventually, hopefully, you get that program that does what the user wants it to do, and what you want it to do and what they want it to do are the same thing. So, while coding is a language. Coding is a language of logic and structure. The lessons that we get from what we do as developers, they're universal. They can be applied everywhere in our everyday lives. That ability to dissect a problem, to dissect very, very complex problems, iterate, refine them, are good, that's the word I'm looking for, capabilities of a good programmer. But they're also aspects of people that are looking to excel in other fields. I talked about earlier the fact that you weren't a good programmer when you first started, but you iterated, you learned more, and you finally succeeded as being a good developer. When you're in any other process, whether it's art, whether it's sports, you have to keep learning and keep pushing yourself forward to eventually excel at that craft, whatever it may be. So these skills are transferable, and we see them in many different walks of life. And I think our skills, as I say, they transcend all these different boundaries. They're intertwined. They don't replace anything, but they actually enrich each other. So your programming skills might make you, I talked about fish keeping, they might make you a better fish keeper because you went and you built a system that could read water parameters, and it told you instantaneously when there was too much nitrate or nitrite or ammonia in the water. And you've actually got a bit of a background in electrical engineering, so you built pumps that went and did water changes and added the right chemicals to it. So your technological background influenced your other fish keeping passion. Maybe that you had another passion, it was the other way around. So I was a fish keeper, we'll stay on that same thing, and I had an understanding of the life cycles and the requirements of certain species of fish. But then I could then take that and I could build something that could be going used in the wild to maybe track populations of these fish and make sure that the water parameters in the wild were correct and we weren't polluting the waters, and we could use them to find species that were thought to have been extinct. I have a friend that's over in Cyprus, and he's looking for several species of fish over there that are thought to have be extinct, and he's using technological advancements to find those. Previously you would have gone with a net and some rocks and you would have looked under the rocks to find these fish. He's taking water samples and he's looking for the DNA of these animals in the water, and technology is helping find these, and they have found populations of some of the fish they were looking for that were thought to have been extinct, I believe anyway. I may be misquoting him, but it's very, very interesting. And I did have the opportunity to go and work with him out there in Cyprus, but I was on a family holiday and the wife said no. So it didn't happen. Now, in this 21st century that we are in, it's a very much an evolving technological landscape, and technology plays the ever-pervasive role in our lives. There probably is not one aspect of our lives that is not touched by some form of code, some form of tech. It's weaved into our lives. But as we've seen with some of the examples, that what happens when these tech maestros look beyond their screens is that the results are transformative. They can change the world. And at the heart of every technological innovation lies the desire to solve a problem. Let's consider assistive technologies. We have an ageing population, a lot of them living with disabilities. When healthcare professionals get into partnership with programmers, we end up with voice-assisted devices for the visually impaired. We've got wearable technology for Parkinson's sufferers. We're not just making gadgets in our bedrooms, but we are changing lives. And some of these technological advancements have come through not even professional bodies getting together, but it could be a developer in their bedroom at home talks to their wife, who maybe is in care of the elderly or some other medical industry, and they bring their passions together, and the wife says, oh, I've got this issue, and I wish there was something that could do this, that and the other, and the developer goes, I'm a developer, I could solve that problem. And they bring their passions together and they solve these things. Now, one thing that we could see is in an ever polarizing world is that if we had these social media experts, these people producing all these platforms, if they got together with sociology experts, psychology experts, got some digital design in there, they could actually facilitate a platform that was engaging. It produced meaningful conversations and actually bridged these divides rather than widening them. This is not Threads. I don't know if any of you use that, but it's definitely not that platform. A lot of the groundbreaking innovations that have happened through time, they've not come from within a single discipline. It's when coders venture into these crossroads that they become part of a dynamic confluence. We have the coder ecologist that builds an AI-driven solution for reforestation. Artist programmer come up with interactive and innovative installations. And I always struggle with that word, I don't know why. Maybe these false teeth. And it's these intersections between all of these different fields, all these passions, where the fertile ground is and where you should be looking to maybe find some of these problems that need fixing. And they often will give you being from a technological background, you'll be able to find very efficient solutions to some of these problems. A lot of developers out there, they want to build something, they want to solve a problem, and they often try and come up with a problem to solve rather than trying to think of a problem. Look at these different passions, these different fields, where they come together, where they intersect. Is there a problem there that you could solve? And this is to everybody here, and if anybody is watching online, your skills are invaluable. So the more, and even more so when they're married with your passions that are outside of tech. The power not to just build apps, but to shape, you've got the power not just to build apps, but shape societies, not just fix bugs, but mend real life rifts. And as you step back into the world and look beyond the binary, therein lies the transformative innovations. As I've said, look for them, they are there. Yes, there we go. So, in the heart of Silicon Valley, there's a figure, the developer. He's a bit of a modern day wizard, sitting there, typing his code, hitting the keyboard. But what if I told you that developer has so much more potential? He could be so much more. We need to look beyond what we just see ourselves as being developers, and we can be more. The developer's toolkit is brimming with skills, problem solving, analytical thinking, and our attention to detail. Or some of us have got attention to detail. But it's not just useful for late night coding sessions in your bedroom at home, or in your living room on your laptop, or wherever it is that you like to reside and tinker. These skills are universal keys, and they unlock boundless doors to all domains. We think of programmers who use algorithms to optimize traffic flow, or developers who create an app to connect artisans to local and global markets. When developers step outside of their day-to-day, they address societal problems and challenges. They create art, and they even can reshape economies. And there's a certain allure to wearing multiple different hats. And if we look back at other polymaths, there are some greater polymaths that are not just taking one or two fields, but multiple. We have Leonardo da Vinci. He was great in Titanic. He was a painter. He was a scientist, but he was so much more. And if you want to go down that route with him, maybe he was a time traveller and he could only go back in time. That's how he invented the helicopter and the submarine, because he knew what they were, kind of. But he was never confined by a single box. He refused to be boxed into being an artist or being a scientist or being an inventor. He was all of those things. And you all have that potential, similarly to him, to be that Renaissance person, but a Renaissance person of the digital age. Integrating technical acumen for any of your passions, whether that's music, art, social work, or even gastronomy. They enrich each other. They give you a fresh perspective on the domains that are out there and that we can work in. So, to conclude, this is a call to all of you. Don't just code, but create. Don't just debug, but dream. Embrace your holistic potential. Dive into the intersections of domains. In an era of rapid digitization, don't forget the human in the loop. Remember, you are not just developers of software, but of ideas, art, solutions, and a brighter future. Embrace your broader identity and your multifaceted natures, and together we can shape the world. We can shape a world where tech not only functions, but inspires, enriches, and connects. And thank you. And I apologise for looking at my slides for that. As I said, I took a week's holiday and forgot a lot about what I was going to say. But we've got two things here. You can go to Amazon and buy the book if you so wish. It's available on Kindle, although the Kindle version's awful because you can't format it or do anything with it, so it reads horribly. Especially with poetry, you want things on a single page. Kindle doesn't let you do that for accessibility reasons, so I'm told. I've got a mobile app, which it's taking my experience in the holiday industry, which is my very first development job, taking my technological background and my inability to know where places are and where I want to go on holiday, and taking a new look on how you book a holiday. Right now you need to know where you want to go, when you want to go, and what you want to do, and where these places are that meet those needs. The goal of my app, which is called Gocation, is that you would search by the time of year, the temperatures, how many tourists you want around, maybe the continents that you want to go to, and eventually you're going to be able to put in the activities that you want to do, the things that you want near there, and it will give you results of, have you thought about going here, have you thought about going there? And it takes it a little bit further. One example, I found that there's a place that's absolutely beautiful in Albania, but you would never go there on a holiday unless you had a lot of time off work, because the destination is 7 hours from the airport. But I found that if you fly into Corfu, you can take a ferry, which is an hour, and be there. And Corfu's not too far away, so it's helping you to find these destinations. Now, the current version that's available on iOS and Android is terrible. There's missing data, but it's the first version. So if you do go and download it, you can download it, and it's okay. But version 2 is going to be even better, with the ability to find where you can fly from an airport, put airports in, put countries in, and it will give you a map. There'll be an AI concierge that you can talk to and things like that. But that's enough of me trying to flog you my dreams and ideas, and this will be an overnight success. I've only been working on it for about 7 years at this point, because it originally started as a website, and the holiday industry back then wasn't as open as it is now, And I built the platform, and all of the people that had the data went, oh no, you need users and footfall on your website before we can give you this. And all over it, so this is an alpha, this is the idea. It was all running off JSON files in the background, and it was slow as hell. And they went, no, it's not happening. And then I picked it up a year or so ago and wrote it in .NET MAUI, and I apologise for anybody that likes MAUI that's here or is listening, but it's a steaming hot pile of trash. It's not fit for purpose, and it's a toxic community. But that's just my opinion. Yeah, and it's I moved it over to Dart and Flutter, and it's amazing. I really love it. What I achieved in 6 months in MAUI, I did in a week in Flutter. But yeah, any questions, any queries, anybody fallen asleep, anybody bored of me talking yet?
Did you use any AI tools for your poetry?
I did, to help me with the front cover. Because I'd made a lot of different scribbles around, this is what I want, but I just couldn't get anything to look quite right. So I threw some of the designs into Midjourney and said, make me something. And it came up with that, gave me in a JPEG, and it was terrible. So I then took that as a starting point and created it. And there are a few little Easter eggs and stuff in the scribblings in that picture as well that I put in there. But yeah, there is going to be a second book as well, sometime next year. It's not going to be poetry, and it's not going to be this is how you do tech, but it's going to be the confessions of a cynical developer. So a bit like a diary to myself, future, past me, future, past developers, and other people like that. Just as a bit of a guide to the world of technology, because I think after 20 years of writing code, I've got something that maybe somebody somewhere could learn from. But I'm going to stop waffling on about things that I am and I'm not going to do, and I'll let you go on and chat and go home and enjoy the rest of the evenings. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Jake.